Liam Lawson, after 2 races for Red Bull, looks set to be replaced by Yuki Tsunoda for the Japanese Grand Prix. It was discussed a lot at the end of last season when Sergio Perez was ousted from that second Red Bull seat as to which of Yuki Tsunoda or Liam Lawson deserved to go in alongside Max Verstappen for the 2025 season. From one side, Tsunoda has been with the sister team since 2021, and after a tough start, he has improved massively in recent seasons and now looks like a driver that deserves to be on the Formula One grid for the foreseeable future, versus a driver who only had 11 races to his name across 2 cameo performances, replacing Daniel Ricciardo in both, but had impressed massively across those cameo performances, often getting the better of Tsunoda who was alongside him and scoring points in 3 of those 11 races in an unfavoured RB car. There were a lot of arguments from each side, and depending on your preferences, you probably also had an opinion on which of those 2 drivers you wanted to see alongside Max this season, but Red Bull opted for Liam Lawson. However, after 2 races at the start of this year, we're set to see the pair swap places already. And it has been 2 really tough weekends for Liam Lawson. He's yet to make it out of Q1 in what is considered one of the fastest cars on the grid, and he's also yet to score points compared to his teammate, who already has 36 on the board and is sitting in 2nd place in the Drivers' World Championship. Lawson has addressed his problems, saying, "It's just really tough, honestly. The window is really small, that's known, but honestly, it's not an excuse. It's just the car characteristics. It's the way that the car drives. But obviously, if Max is able to drive it, then I should be able to get on top of it as well. But knowing you have a problem and being able to fix that problem in Formula One are completely separate things. And we see that all across the grid. And with Formula One being such a fast-paced sport on and off the track, you don't get the opportunity to settle into a seat, especially if it's a Red Bull seat and one of the top teams on the grid. You just have to deliver straight away, and Liam will know that." Horner has come out and been both supportive of Liam Lawson, saying, "I think the problem for him is he's had a couple of really tough weekends. He's got all the media on his back, a whole bunch of pressure that naturally just grows in this business. I feel very sorry for him that you can see it's very tough on him at the moment." But also, he has mounted some pressure of his own onto Liam Lawson's back when he was asked about the Constructors' Championship, saying, "The championship is a very tough ask, and we need to make significant progress with the car in order to even challenge for that. You have to have 2 cars scoring. That obviously hurt us badly last year." And with only 1 car scoring points so far this year, that's triggered a board meeting between the Red Bull higher-ups, Helmut Marko, Christian Horner, some of the Thai investors, and also, crucially, some of the representatives from Honda were in Dubai after the Shanghai Grand Prix weekend to discuss their options moving forwards for 2025. This unfortunately isn't anything new for the Red Bull team. Since Daniel Ricciardo's first departure from Red Bull to Renault, the 2 Red Bull teams have constantly been swapping their drivers around trying to find a fix. We've seen Gasly, Albon, Kvyat, Perez, Tsunoda, De Vries, Ricciardo coming back, and Liam Lawson all go into those 4 different seats, and the team constantly searching for something to stabilise their driver lineups. And to be fair to them, they have tried almost everything, but it doesn't seem to be working. And it seems that another change is inbound, as this story was broken by Jackie Martins, who works for a publisher in the Netherlands. The big issue with this is, of course, that it's not official yet, but also that Liam would have likely seen the news before being told officially. So when the call comes from Helmut Marko and that pops up on his phone, he'll already have that sinking feeling of knowing what's coming, which can't really help with his confidence for the rest of the season, as they do want him to go back into the sister team for the rest of the year. Mix that in with all the Daniel Ricciardo stuff that happened last year, where he wasn't allowed to address the fact that the Singapore Grand Prix was clearly his last race, and we as fans didn't get to have that farewell moment with Dan as he was leaving the team, which is besides the point now, but just goes to show that clearly off track, the discussions behind the scenes at Red Bull are an absolute mess. Back to this swap, a Yuki Tsunoda promotion would not just be a huge opportunity for him, but also for Honda, the team that have been the main brand behind Yuki Tsunoda, getting him that seat in the second Red Bull team in the first place, and then funding his spot in the sport since then. They were massively pushing for Yuki Tsunoda to take that Red Bull seat anyway after Sergio Perez left at the end of last year, even offering more money if Tsunoda got that chance. Obviously, that didn't happen, but it's likely that that offer from Honda was still on the table for Red Bull, and why I think Honda will now be pushing even harder for this swap to go through imminently is because the next round is Yuki Tsunoda's home race and Honda's home race in Japan. Japan. And Yuki has once again started the season really well. Last year he was performing at a high enough level for the RB and Red Bull team to get him locked into his seat for this year before the real chaos of the driver market started, because there were other teams that were really interested in bringing Yuki Tsunoda in. And then this year he should have really scored points in both Grand Prix weekends. He's qualified well in all 3 qualifying sessions. He's had good pace in every single race, and then the team has just got the strategy wrong in both Grand Prix. Then looking at the bigger picture, it's been 13 years since a Japanese driver scored a podium in F1, and the country has never really had a consistent front-running driver in the sport. So Honda are probably hoping that they can put some more money in Red Bull's direction and get the swap for Liam Lawson done before the Japanese Grand Prix. Then not only will they have one of their drivers in a top team for the first time in a long time, but also a shot at a podium for a Japanese driver in Japan, which would be monumental. That is, if Yuki Tsunoda can adapt to the Red Bull car. It's not outside the realms of possibility that if this swap does happen, we see Liam Lawson in white ahead of Yuki Tsunoda now in dark blue, because when they were side by side last year, there really wasn't a lot between them, and the RB car seems so much easier to drive than the Red Bull. I mean, Max Verstappen has even said that. Max said if you look at the difference between the 2 drivers at other teams, they're all closer together. It also shows that our car is extremely tough. I think if you put Liam in a Racing Bulls car, he will go faster. I really think so. The car is easier to drive than ours. And Max is right. Liam Lawson hasn't become a bad driver overnight, and he had a full preseason test to try and get on top of the Red Bull, which clearly hasn't happened. Yuki Tsunoda has only ever tested the Red Bull once after Abu Dhabi last year, and is going to be thrown in with just 3 one-hour free practice sessions before having to qualify and then race on one of the most technical tracks on the whole Formula 1 calendar. Add into the mix that it's his home Grand Prix and the circumstances in which he's taking this seat, Yuki Tsunoda will be under enormous pressure to perform straight away. Even a spin in practice will be scrutinized and talked about by everybody related to Formula 1, let alone how he performs in the competitive sessions and whether he can do any better than what Liam Lawson achieved over his 2 Grand Prix weekends. It will either look like a great decision and Yuki Tsunoda will slot in and get some points on the board for that second Red Bull seat, or Yuki will just be the next driver in now what is a long list of drivers to show that that Red Bull car is just impossible to drive unless you've been there throughout its entire development and you're one of the most talented drivers that the sport has ever seen. Which then makes me ask, what happens if Yuki Tsunoda doesn't perform? I know it's way too early to say that, and as someone who's been a huge advocate of Yuki, I really hope that he can hit the ground running and does get some points on the board straight away. If you look at the names that Red Bull has thrown aside in recent years and the fact that most of the grid are now on multi-year contracts into 2026 after last year's driver market craziness, I have no idea where they would look to next. And I don't think that any driver on the grid would actually want that spot, because there's no guarantee that the Red Bull car will be that good next year due to the regulation change. But that discussion is for another video, because this kind of swap is unprecedented. I'm sure in the archives of F1 we've seen drivers swapping after a couple of Grand Prix, but within my time as a fan, I can't remember this high profile of a swap happening just 2 races into a season as well, and it's going to be fascinating to see what happens next. There are so many different ways in which this could go really right and really wrong, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed this video, subscribe, become a member to support the channel and have your name right here, and why not check out this video here where I did slightly predict that this might one day happen.